Welcome back to the Adventure Box podcast. This is Zach Edwards with Historical Conquest. This today is going to be about Mesoamerica. There's no curriculum. It's not based on what you find in the curriculum, because I want to do something that's very important while you're learning about this curriculum or learning about all the different parts of this curriculum is your own research. So research is essential because, again, I might point you towards something. Your teacher might point you towards something. But what's really going to make a difference is what you find about this. And the reason why that is because you have certain interests of your own. So much more than what any teacher could show you. Because a teacher is going to say, okay, this is what's important to the school district. Or this is what's important in my mind. And I might say, this is important for you to learn. But the thing, again, that's going to make you actually engage with what you're learning is finding out what you're interested in. So we're going to go over what I'm interested in to show you why this is so important. And also, again, like I said, I wanted to be an archaeologist, so we're going to be heavy on archaeology and going places. I love traveling. Now, I can't go everywhere I want to go, like such as I would never go to Mexico City right now because of all the cartels and the drug trafficking and all other types of trafficking that are happening. It's a very sad state of affairs that's happening down there, and they're completely out of control. A new president was just put into office, actually, which is very interesting because she is Jewish, and she is, well, for one thing, a woman. And in South America and Central America, it's a very masculine society. So putting a woman there was actually just stressed by the former president to get her on the ticket. But the problem is that she's not taking care of any of the real issues that the people are wanting them to take care of. And again, it's early in her running of the country, but we will see what actually happens, because the biggest issues that are happening are taking care of the cartels, taking them on, not being paid by them, not by being pressured by them, but by taking them on and bringing safety to Mexico. Because until that time, I will not be traveling to Mexico at all, to any province, anywhere over the border, because I don't trust it. And it's not just me. This is like everyone. This is talking about the most dangerous spots to visit. Mexico is one of them. So, though I would love to see the Aztecs, the Maya, the Olmecs, all these different things, I cannot be there at this time. So, because I can't be there, I went on a little adventure on the internet. And though it's not the same thing, it's as close as I can get right now. But just so you know, and I cannot say much about this, Historical Conquest is going to be making a new technology that's going to revolutionize this. So you can actually visit places like this virtually. Can't wait to show you it. Okay. But again, it's like a 4-year contract that we're working on this grant for. It's over $2 million. It's probably going to cost about $4 million in the end, because there's so many things I want to put into it. And I know there's only a certain amount that we can put into it. And this will be attached to our Zogos system, our sister company, Zogos Gaming. It will be attached to that system and possibly to Steam. So if you know what Steam is, it's a video game system, you'll be able to do it. But what it is, I want to tell you, but I cannot tell you. I'll keep you informed as we go. You're going to get new things all the time, and we're going to be giving it to you through this podcast. But I'm going to give you little snippets because I'm not allowed to tell you a lot of it. So, until that point, let's go further. Sorry about that. If you can hear that, that's my hard drive failing for some reason. It's happened before. I don't know why. Anyways, let's go on. Okay, so what I want to do first. This was a question was sent in about this. They were asking about which tribes are in which area of Mexico. So we did this up in North America, but we did not focus on Central America. And we'll do the same thing when we're down in South America. So let's go through this. In our adventure for the Adventure Box podcast, yesterday and the day before, we talked about the Olmecs, the last 3 days, the Olmecs, the Maya, and the Aztecs. The Olmecs were well before the Aztecs, even before the Maya people. But they fell apart, their society fell apart and diminished, possibly through war and other contentions. Then they broke off, some of the people left, and those that stuck around came into other tribes, including the Maya Empire, which was actually spanning about 1,000 years plus, because it was BC, and the Europeans didn't even come over and conquer them until like 1521. And so that's a long span. But the demise of the Maya people already happened. I think it was around 800 BC. So, yeah, that's the gist of that. So then came the Aztec in about 1300 AD. So almost 2,000 years after the Maya started. Now, the Maya did not spread out a huge amount. I think, again, most of these things are theories, but from what I've read, they were growing to be a great civilization. And then around 700, 800 AD, the civilization basically broke apart into a lot of different factions, to a lot of different families, a lot of different tribes, and just broke off. The Aztecs, on the other hand, were around for less than 200 years, much like the United States has been around for less than 200 years. This is substantial because the Maya had thousands of years to develop. The Aztec has a small amount, and yet they conquered and developed about the same amount. Possibly because of some of the things that the Maya had traveled into the Aztec culture. Now, again, going back to the question, which tribes were actually there at the time? So let's show you this. This is Mexico. This is all the way down to even Guatemala. And these are the different tribes that were speckled throughout that area. So the Aztec would have been right about here. But the Aztec were also made up of a lot of different tribes. So that was a lot of these different tribes put together. So Mextec, we talked about. Mazatec, I think we talked about yesterday. And so forth. And so go back. But if you want to see which tribes were where, and these are still the major tribes. There are still smaller tribes outside of these groups. Now it does say Maya here, but as you know, about 800 AD to about 1521 when they were conquered, this had fallen apart. And I can't remember if it was the Aztecs, 1521, or the Maya. But here is the curriculum. Again, I wasn't going off the curriculum today, but here's the curriculum. And if I span back into the Maya, I can actually see that I can do this right here. The Olmecs were from 1600 BC, potentially, to about 350 BC. The Maya was about 750 BC until the 1500s AD when the Spanish came over. And then you have the Aztec, which were about 1345 until 1521. That's the 1521. So, yes, that is something for you to understand, keep track of, because we're going to be talking about them again, these same civilizations, next month when we go into Age of Exploration. Because, of course, all these tribes, or a lot of these tribes were still there at that time. So, now, this is to answer that question. Where were the tribes at this time? The Maya was actually one of the largest areas of just Maya. But as I said before, there were smaller factions within that area, especially after they had started to demise or break apart. Okay, so next, I wanted to have you go on a little adventure. I know we talked about this a little bit before, but we're going to give you a little bit more of an adventure in the jungle. So imagine this. Imagine you see this. This is a jungle. Again, everyone can imagine a jungle in their mind. A jungle is very, very full. There's a lot of foliage, a lot of plants, animals within, because you can't really see the animals from above. If you fly over a jungle, most times you will see just a jungle, just trees, just bushes, just vegetation, and nothing underneath. So you're flying over and you can't find anything. You're like, okay, these trees are sometimes up to 100 feet tall. So I need to get underneath them. So you land your plane and you start to walk. Slowly you walk into the jungle. Oops. These are out of order. Oh man. These take away a lot of the fun. Okay. Let me restart my images because I just destroyed my own thing. Okay, let's start this adventure again. You come off your plane. You start wandering into this jungle. And what is it you find? What do you find? You find, and this is from your plane view, you find bugs, creatures climbing up the wall, spiders setting up spider webs all throughout the jungle. All these bugs, the trees all close together. You don't find anything. You thought you were going to find great ruins and such. No, the first thing you find are some of the biggest fears in your lives. Not just bugs, which some people are afraid of, jaguars, other animals that will rip you to shreds. Yeah, it's not a safe spot in here. So you continue to wander into this jungle. You hear all these different noises, creatures from all around, water dripping, because it's, again, partial rainforest. So you've got a lot of wet. Your clothes are getting drenched. Your mind is getting weary, tired of walking as you keep going further and further into the jungle. You're probably about a mile in. Sometimes you even reach the idea of, can I even get out of here? Do I even know what my path was going back? From above, you might see an occasional temple from above. But you have to be able to get there through this big, thick forest. And as you walk, it starts to open up. It's like, I can see ruins now. I can see them, which I couldn't see above. It looked like trees. But now there's ruins. As you start walking further and further in, you can see more and more of the ruins. They're starting to appear. Not just ones that are visible possibly from above, but ones from underneath. There are ruins of old buildings, temples. If you were among the Maya, you'd have rock buildings all built up, stone upon stone, thousands of hours to put one of these buildings together. If you were among the Aztec, you would see stone, but you would also see concrete. They were one of the first civilizations to create concrete. And that is actually one of your cards in the new expansion pack, the invention of concrete. As you go, the ruins open up and you start to see these amazing structures. If you're looking at the picture, you'll be able to see over 100 feet tall, mysterious, daunting sometimes, destroyed in so many ways and yet still preserved in many ways. Some of the stairs are fallen apart. You couldn't even dare to climb them. Others, that they have stairs that are still fully intact, and you begin to climb. You climb up these stairs and go in to the temples above. There is no entrance below. You have to climb the stairs. From the top, you look down and you can see the other ruins of other places speckled around you. Ruins that are falling apart and yet have been preserved for hundreds of years. Again, 1521 to 2024. How many years is that? 15 minus from 20. That's 5. 503 years. 503 years since the destruction of at least Tenochtitlan. Some of these were abandoned much before, much like the Olmecs. Those structures you can't even find from above. The Aztecs, the Maya, those ones you can see from above. but a lot of them are completely covered with vegetation. You may even find ruins that the vegetation has completely overcased them, that you would actually have to dig into the dirt in order to find, and use radar, echo technology in order to go deep into the soils to see if that there's actually a structure underneath. And so you keep walking and you find amazing temples that are still there today. How is that they still survived? Well, concrete, as you know, we use it today. It will not deteriorate for thousands of years. It will most likely have to be washed away piece by piece before it falls apart, before the entire thing falls apart. So this is what I wanted to do as a youth. I wanted to walk the grounds of these temples. I wanted to discover the artwork inside. I wanted to open the doors to the tombs inside. That's right. There are tombs inside a lot of these temples, sarcophaguses. These are the burial grounds of some of their leaders. And yet, some of them are so fallen apart that you wonder if you even should walk underneath them or in them or such. So, let me go. How do we go from Lake Texcoco being this grand lake with one large island being completely covered to it being completely covered with Mexico City? Well, interesting enough, it wasn't just the Aztecs that did that. Or, sorry, it wasn't just the those in Mexico that did that. It wasn't just the Spanish. This was actually developed a lot by the Aztec. The lake was being used in so many ways, and so many things were floating at the time. So, it's amazing what we find today. There are so many questions that we might have. Again, Mexico, if you go to yesterday's video, or just go to Google Maps and type in Lake Texcoco. That's Texcoco. Texcoco. That lake, it'll put you in the middle of Mexico City, and it is completely gone. Now, there are some lakes that are still there, reserves that were preserved after they basically destroyed the rest of the lake. So why is it that people do archaeology? Is it just to find cool things? Is it just to learn about history? No. These days, it's actually a lot of activism. A lot of activism is actually found in archaeology. When someone finds a Native American burial ground, or when someone finds a temple, or when someone finds evidence of artifacts that may have been part of a civilization, they will use that to preserve the area. I'm not against it. I'm not completely for it either, because I guess it depends on what that land is to be used for. If the land is to be paved over, oh, I'm so for preserving it. If it's there to be used in other ways, don't know. We'd have to find out according to whatever that was to be used by. Now, something like Mexico City, I don't belong to Mexico City. I'm not a Mexican citizen. If I was a citizen from Mexico, I would have more say in that. But as someone that lives in the United States, coming down into an archaeological area and saying, oh, this needs to be preserved because of X, Y, and Z, it's not for me to say. It is for me to try to promote the preservation of those areas. But they have to be done by the locals. The locals are the ones that control them. No outside entity should try to control these areas. Again, this is my opinion, but this is me wanting to be an archaeologist. If I was to be an archaeologist and I found an area that was full of artifacts, maybe a temple, maybe other things, I would do everything in my power to preserve that. But again, I am not the Mexican government. I am not a citizen of Mexico. I need to actually work with the locals to preserve it. That is what archaeology is about. It's not just about finding history. It's about preserving history, whether it's preserving the artifacts, showing them off, doing more research on it, It's a great field to go into, and that's what I wanted to go into. To be able to discover ruins like this, ones that are almost completely dilapidated. They will probably fall apart in the next 100 years or so. But who knows? Something like this. Look at all of these. If you're looking at the image, you're not missing anything if you're not. Just so you know, it's a Aztec temple with a lot of separate smaller temples, smaller buildings. Now, how many of these are ones you can walk into or ones that you can have to dig into because they're burial plots, burial temples? I don't know. I haven't been there. I would love to go to Mexico. But again, it is not safe for people to go to Mexico. Now, I know as youth, you think, oh, I'm invincible. You know, I'm 40 years old. I've been to places all around the world, and there are certain places I will not go to because I value my life over entertainment. So, if you're wondering about it, you better think twice about going to places like Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela. Those are places I would love to visit. Not going. Not until things settle down. And that won't happen until the people that run it start taking over. And I don't mean controlling the nation. I mean working on, much like we do in the United States. Again, looking at it from an American eye, they need to get more police in there to control the issues that are going on. Because it's not people protesting per se. It's cartels, it's murderers, it's thugs, it's on and on. People that go down to these places are sometimes kidnapped and held ransom. I'm not going to be held ransom. I'm not going to be one of those people. So this is why it's so important to be able to be part of this. To be able to understand the culture in the past and the culture now. Anthropology, also a great field to go into. Look that up. So as we end this podcast, I give you another plea. I want your questions. I want to know what you're thinking, what your questions are, so I can answer them on a podcast. Now, we would usually have a Friday podcast, bonus podcast, but I leave that up to you. As of right now, we basically use today as a mixture of mine and the one question that we had already. So tomorrow we will not have a podcast, but we will have one next week. This week we talked about the Aztecs. The last week we talked about the Maya. Next, we'll be going down to South America. We're going to be talking about the Amazon. We're going to be talking about Machu Picchu, which I'm going to go visiting next year. I do actually trust Peru. Peru is a fairly well-governed country. I'm going to go to places, if not in person, virtually, to be able to show you the kind of things that you can learn. Now, Mexico is not one that I've actually been to, but I want to. I want to go to the Amazon. Haven't been there yet. I want to go to Brazil. That's actually one place I would go to, just haven't been there yet. Stick with us as we go through these podcasts, and we'll bring you to these places. Can't wait to show you around. Can't wait to tell you more. And I cannot wait to answer your questions. Thanks so much for joining us on this Adventure Box podcast, and we will catch you next week in South America. Take care. Bye-bye. If you have any comments or questions, add them to the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow, actually. Take care. Bye.